Hi, I'm Kelly Forshaw-Smith, Head Medical Trainer for the Finishing Touches Group and Director and Technician of Medicos London. Today we have
Taryn Quinterri.
Her topic is needle know-how. Taryn stumbled into the industry when she had laser to remove an unwanted tattoo. In 2010, Taryn dropped out of architecture college and put herself through skin school, much to her mother's dismay. In 2012, she started her career in SMP, and at the time, she was the youngest of all the students that they'd had. She hasn't looked back since. Taryn loves the technical side of the industry and relishes in subjects such as needle and color theory. She has demonstrated and spoken at a variety of international conferences. Taryn's located in Phoenix, Arizona. She's a master of all micropigmentation, cosmetic, medical, scalp, and skin. She teaches and has a number of webinars on needles and color theory available to view. Today we have a quick snippet of the frequently asked questions on needles. So welcome, Taryn.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Good. So I think the first question to ask, obviously you're like the needle expert, basically. What are needles made of?
So needles are made of steel, so they're often going to contain nickel and chrome.
Okay.
That's
it. What in needle knowledge, why is it so important that maybe someone who maybe they've been doing it for a few years, maybe they're new at doing it, why do you think it's important for somebody to know all about the needle?
Well, for one example, you could be doing a set of brows on somebody with oily and plump skin, and a needle that worked amazing on somebody with combination red skin might work terrible and just cause bleeding on another person's skin. For another example, let's say scalp. When I'm choosing a needle scalp, I choose it based on the thickness of the person's existing growing hair. So when you've got your darker skin types, your African Americans with more coarse hair, you're going to want a larger needle. When you've got say you're working on Asians or really anybody with thinner hair, you're going to want a thinner needle. So there's so many different reasons.
Okay, so anyone out there who maybe doesn't know that much, obviously there is a variety of needles, but there is also different types of tips, isn't there? Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yep, so there's different configurations, meaning the shape that they configure into. There's different sizes, meaning there's thin ones and thick ones. And then there's different tapers. So the taper is where the needle starts to come to a point, right? And there's short tapers, there's medium tapers, there's long tapers, textured tapers, there's a lot. And they all have different uses. So tiny example, short taper is gonna make a larger hole in the skin or a thicker line. And a longer taper is going to make a smaller hole in the skin and a thinner line. So there's a lot more to that, obviously. I'm happy to answer any questions, and my needle theory webinar is available to anyone as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the, obviously the sizing and so on, there's also the cone, or there's different sizing or shaping of it, but that'll all depend again on what type of skin you're using on?
Yep. So there's, for example, like the acupuncture needles. So those are considered bullet tips. So they're not as sharp as other tapers. So they implant pigment with a little less trauma. They're really great for the pixels. And yeah, there's all kinds of different tips for different things.
What needles do you personally use for if you were doing, say, an eyebrow?
Okay, so my go-to is either a single acupuncture needle, which is again a bullet tip and usually short taper, a 3-round liner for those that maybe the single just isn't quite getting it in enough. Sometimes it takes a 3-round to get it in their skin. And then also a mag needle, a curved mag. I love those. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's configuration of stacked needles, and then it's curving like sort of a U shape. It's really, really great for packing pigment in. You can also get a soft pixel effect. It's really nice.
And what about for scalp tattooing? What would be your favorite?
3-round liners. And then again, it goes back to the density of their existing hair or the diameter. So you've got your they make as small as a size 4, which is considered a 0.18, I believe, or maybe even 0.17. It's so new. Size 4, 3-round liner, and then you can go as big as a size 12, which is considered in the body industry the standard needle, which is 0.35 millimeters in diameter. So that's going to be for your larger, more coarse hair.
Oh, very good. And a little question while I think of it is, can you reuse a needle on a client when they come back?
Okay, no. Back in the day, I think people did, you know, body artists, when they were using those needles on the bar that can be sterilized. But why? I don't know. I just know that was in history that happened. They would autoclave it. So yes, it would be sterilized. But the thing is, needles dull out, you know, and they're so not like they're very costly. So why do that? But with the cartridges, absolutely not. You cannot. The plastic melt in an autoclave. And again, they're going to dull out. There's just no point to do that nowadays.
Do some needles dull out quicker than others?
Yes, and I think it depends mainly on like what is being done. So for example, like I can generally get through an eyebrow or an areola tattoo with one needle without having to change it. I might change tips for different, you know, designs, but as far like when I'm doing a scalp, sometimes with the pointillism, and if you've got that thick or kind of rubbery, leathery skin, they dull out super quick. I've had a couple cases where I've used even like 10 needles on a scalp before. So
that was actually my next question of how many needles, like, would you say that you use for, do you use just one needle for eyebrows, or do you use a multitude of needles?
Sometimes I'll use just one, and then other times I'll end up using 2. And then there's been times where I've gone through 4 needles. Just the other day, I had my second pair of hardest brows in 8 years. I went through 4 different needles, and I went to one of my oldest techniques that I learned like 7 years ago, like a packing in sort of like tattoo style looking, because I couldn't pigment it. I mean, it's just crazy. I'm so grateful that I know all of these different techniques. I've continued my education. I know about the different needles. And then, you know, of course, I always keep track in their chart. So I wrote down after like tried this, and this, none of it worked. This is what worked. Yeah. So when she comes back for her top up, you know, I know exactly what to go for.
That's the thing. Needle knowledge is so important. Like, you need to know what you're using for your own craft. If you don't know, if you're like an artist, well, we are artists, so to speak, but well, we are definitely, but it'll be an artist not knowing what brush to use for a certain stroke. You need to know everything about it in order to make you the better technician.
Exactly. That's exactly right. A painter does not use the same brush for every part of his painting or her painting, you know, so that's exactly it.
So with Finishing Touches, we're quite hot on safety and micro, we call it. It's a campaign that we set up. So obviously you can get needles from lots of different companies. What's your view on buying needles from a reputable company?
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I mean, all the companies that I buy from are definitely reputable. I guess it's, I would, you know, as a beginner, if I were a beginner, I would wonder, well, how do we know what's reputable, right? Because there's those people who are so good at marketing and they look all fancy schmancy, and then they end up being absolute SHIT, you know?
So I was going for sharks there. I thought you were going in for sharks, but SHIT is a good one as well. But no, like 100%. I remember seeing that thing advertised like not that long ago either, where there was needles replicated from China, and they had flies inside of them. Did you see that?
I didn't see that, but I've heard so many.
The thing is, they look identical. They looked absolutely identical. But the thing is that please explain the difference though as well, because there's a bung in it, isn't there, that stops the backflow of the needle. And this particular brand,
the membrane.
Yes, that's it. So you need to obviously make sure that every part, not just the needle, but every part of the needle system is correct.
Yeah, so what you need to look for, you need to make sure that they have a membrane, and the company, you know, should tell you that. You also need to have a lot number and an expiration date on your needles, and a sterilization report. So the little colors at the bottom that show that they've been through that. You can buy these needles off of Amazon and they don't have that sterilization report. They don't have a lot number. So those are all really, 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 really important. Another thing that's huge when you're working with needles, no matter, even if you get it from one of the best companies in the world, the fact is needles are made in bulk. And so you have to eye loop, you know, the little magnifying, you have to eye loop your needles. Needles can have debris in them. They can have little fuzzies. They can have rust. And also, most importantly, let's say you're working with like a U blade, you know, like a micro blade, you know, for example, one can be poking out like that. one can be slightly just a little bit longer, and then you're causing trauma, you know, like going through the skin, you're going deeper than you're realizing. If you don't eye loop the needle, you could be working with a faulty needle, even from the best of companies.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. So I've asked you already about the multi-need. So if you had to choose 3 brands of needles, what would your top 3 brands be?
Okay, so Vertex needles by Micropigmentation. I just love the quality of them.
Yeah.
And actually I worked, I spoke with Gaston. He was, I believe, the first person to create a cartridge needle that could go into body tattoo machines as well, be very versatile, that had a very small opening. So what I mean by that is, so I had a permanent makeup digital device for many years, and I held on to it even though the needles were $15 a piece, because I would use it for hair strokes, because I needed that small single needle with a tiny opening, which was created a very stable line. The body tattoo industry, they started coming out with cartridges because they're like, oh, look at these permanent makeup dum-dums spending $15 per. Let's create needles for them, and you know, we'll make money off them. But they couldn't get the single needle right. They kept having too large of an opening for the single needle, so it was very wobbly when I was trying to do hair strokes. So Gaston created that first nano-sized needle with a small opening that fit in all these different machines. So I love the quality of that needle. It's made out of Japanese steel, which is a lot stronger, so it won't dull as quick. So that's number 1. Number 2 is Bishop. I specifically use those for scalps. They have bishopsmp.com. They have the size 4 3-round liner, which is just, I like to use a 3-round on scalp versus a single, because it's not as easy to make a blowout or a mega dot. A single needle goes boom in the skin, so sharp, so easy. With the 3, you have that resistance. So the smaller that they're making these 3s, the more realistic it's looking like a single. So it's amazing. And then lastly, I would say, I love Mary Hall Scott has some acupuncture needles. Her company is Micropmu. I think it's just Micropmu. But anyway, her acupuncture needles are awesome. And a 4th is Quadron. I love Quadron. I had to throw it in there.
Not to leave them out, of course. Oh, that's brilliant. And also, I know that you're quite passionate about microchanneling. Tell me a little bit about what microchanneling is.
Okay, so I had been microneedling for years before I stumbled on ProCell microchanneling. And what makes their machine so different is that they have a patented tip. They've got different sizes. They've got a body one, so it's huge. It covers a ton of surface area in very little time. They've got a medium-sized one, which is for like generally the face and neck, and a small one. And what differs them from other microneedling devices is that their needles, they're actually wire filaments, so they're small enough to fit inside of a hair follicle. It's what's used in electrolysis, very tiny. So they are spread apart on the tip. So each little wire filament is far apart, and that creates a very, very consistent result and response from the skin, and it makes less trauma, and the downtime is close to nothing. My results used to take me, with regular microneedling, at least 6 sessions to have a good before and after photo, whereas now it takes me 3 microchanneling. It's really changed my career, and it's helped my clients so much, and it's one of the best things I've ever stumbled upon. It really is.
Fantastic. And the microchanneling, that is done for skin conditioning?
Yeah, so it's done, so scars, you know, those of you who tattoo scars, it's really important to know rejuvenate those scars if they come in hard or raised. So it breaks up scar tissue, it produces collagen, it plumps up skin, helps fine lines and wrinkles, sun damage, and this and that. But mainly in the permanent makeup world, say we use it for scars.
Yeah. Okay, that is absolutely brilliant. I'm definitely gonna have to look into that a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, so the technique is tapping, but a lot of machines are doing the tapping now, but the ProCell is, I think it's mainly the design of the device as well as the technique.
Okay, fantastic. Is there anything on needles, tips and tricks that you would give to somebody new coming into the industry?
Just that what we just talked about, the biggest, most important things are making sure there's a membrane in the cartridge, making sure it's a reputable company as far as having a lot number and expiration date, sterilization report, and then as well as have your eye loop and eye loop your needles. That's the most important things.
Where do you get your eye loop from?
Oh my God, Amazon. I'd be happy to share the link to anybody. No, like I found the best one. And then of course, like I'm silly, anything that sparkles, it's like has this like sparkly design on the outside, and it comes out and it has 3 different magnifiers, and then also it has a light, and it also has the black light. I don't really know what the black light's for. It's a little scary, honestly.
But it looks like, really good.
It's like, what would be shown in a black on a needle?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's really pretty and I love it.
Basically, you are the guru of needles. You are basically the geek of needles and also color theory, like you have in your webinars. So yeah, anyone obviously can visit and have a look at your webinars. They can subscribe if they want to. They can leave some comments. And then you obviously get back to them. I'll get back to them. So I hope
yes, definitely.
Who wanted to know a snippet of needles, because obviously it's a massive subject, and I'm sure you can talk about it like I can all day. But we only have a certain amount of time, so it was just a very quick snippet of Taryn, of what she can do, and a little bit of chat about her needles. So Taryn, I really appreciate your time and your knowledge on this subject.
Thank you. And yes, everybody subscribe, leave comments, and we will get back to you.
Fantastic. Taryn, I will speak to you very, very soon.
Okay, bye, hun.
Bye.